So I'll take you through the current account piece as far as FEMA is concerned. So current account piece would still comprise of 80 to 90% of the transactions which we do. So though we do a lot of capital account transactions also, but still it's a major chunk as far as the country is concerned. Yeah. So first and foremost, I'll just take you through the various regulatory authorities which are involved in any import or export transaction. The first and foremost being DGFT. So DGFT regulates your physical movement of goods. And generally, DGFT classifies goods into three parts. One is your freely importable, exportable. The second is the restricted category, for which you need a license. The third is the prohibited ones. So where you can't do any transition. So just to take a very recent example, you would have seen in the newspapers also, like now this laptops, computers, etc. Everything is going to be under restricted category effective 1st of November. People will be requiring a specific license to import those products. So whatever is freely importable, exportable now is going to be put under restricted category. So RBI is the one which regulates, which regulates foreign exchange for the country as a whole. So why does RBI do it? Because the foreign exchange is still scarce in the country. It's not available in abundance. So you would have seen what has happened in our neighboring countries like Sri Lanka and Pakistan. So they are struggling big time on forex. So far as we are concerned, we are doing fairly well, and so that is why there is a very active regulator, which the RBI is there and they regulate so forex part of it. The next comes the customs or STPI. So customs ensure that the movement of goods happens, and there is specific forms and declaration that need to be filed with the custom authorities. So they ensure that the valuation, etc., is properly given by the importers and the exporters while doing the requisite filing. Apart from these three regulatory authorities, there's something called International Chamber of Commerce. So if you're doing any import or export transactions, so people, since you'll be doing transactions with somebody sitting, across the border in some other country, so they may have different perception and different interpretation of a particular subject. So now to ensure that both the people, so the guy who is sitting in India and probably you may be transacting somebody across in US or UK, so you interpret the same guidelines in the same manner. There's something called International Chamber of Commerce. So they will lay down various guidelines like UCPDC for letter of credit, URC for this collection bills, Incoterms, bank guarantees. You have URDGs. So that is where you will be able to interpret the same guidelines in the same manner. Just to take a very small example, like so if you have an invoice, if you are doing any letter of credit transaction, as far as international guidelines are concerned, it is not required to be signed or dated. So as a professional, you may say why it is not required to be signed or dated. But if you are entering into a letter of credit transaction, so the guideline is going to be common for everybody across the world. The last but not the least, the banks also have to take care of this FATF and OFAC guidelines. So OFAC stands for Office of Financial Asset Control. So especially if you're a listed entity in USA, like the banks like us, so we have to follow OFAC guidelines. So these OFAC guidelines, there are two kinds of sanctions which we have. One is this entity level sanction. Another is this country level sanctions. So for example, this Iran, Cuba, certain 11 to 12 banks of Russia, we can't do any transactions. So there is no compulsion as far as the other banks are concerned. So but they voluntarily choose to follow this guideline. UCO is the one which anyways been doing transition in INR for Iran. They will also do it, so they can do it. They are not compelled, they are not forced not to do it. So barring the banks like HDFC and ICICI, anybody else can do it. So they voluntarily choose to follow this, that is their choice. So I am saying this, so they are voluntarily following it. But as a bank, we are compelled to follow it. Sir, we have to follow the law of the land. So since we are listed in US stock exchanges, we have to follow those rules. So like you're living in India, if somebody says you can't keep a gun, so that is fine. So it's a rule of the land. If you go to US, you can keep a gun also in your house. So that's so that is what I'm trying. So economic sanctions are imposed by US Office for Financial Assets Control. So since we are listed in USA, so hence we'll have to follow that. So the banks which are listed in USA like ICICI and HDFC, we are listed in US stock exchanges, we have to follow. But other banks in India also follow it, but they follow it voluntarily.
Even if you are not doing, but I think it is important at appropriate time you can
हाँ तो सर आप ईरान का जैसे मैंने आपको बताया ना कि जो बैंक्स लिस्टेड है यूएसए में, सो दे दोज बैंक्स लाइक आईसीआईसीआई वी आर कंपेल्ड. So any bank other than the ones which you have just mentioned they're listed, so they can definitely do those transactions, but it's up to them. But they voluntarily follow it. So as I told you, there are two types of sanctions kinds. One is this, you call it specific designated nation. Okay. So what happens in SDN? Suppose somebody is involved in crime, like Bin Laden. Okay, if you go and search for your OFX sanction site, you find Bin Laden, you'll find that guy is sanctioned. So obviously a bank like UCO or anybody other bank wouldn't like to do the transaction with that. But if this guy is not amongst those criminal people who has been sanctioned by some US authorities, a genuine person who may be a genuine, genuine businessman like you in the counterpart, then the other banks can definitely do those transactions. There is no restriction and RBI doesn't restrict it. So like I'll take a very small example, like crude oil. So we did, had we been importing the oil other than Russia, then things would have been disaster to the country. So oil shoot up to almost $130. We imported crude from Russia in $60 only. So Russia anyways was sanctioned. So Russia crude oil was anyways sanctioned by the US OPEC, but still we did it because country wanted it. It was country's priorities, and they had to route the transition in some manner or other. So obviously the government can take a call on those things.
See, the other point is that most of the banks are having national accounts in US.
Yeah, so basically, so I'll come to that, sir. I'll cover that thing. I got that Vostro and special Vostro also. I'll cover that thing.
So that's a problem for the other banks, no?
So I'll tell you. I'll come to that, sir. Yeah. So before we go to that, so I'll just briefly cover on this EDPMS thing. So earlier, so basically, as I told you, foreign exchange is scarce in the country. So government wants to monitor it. So RBI wants to ensure that if you're doing any export, even if it's a single rupee, it has to be realized. So RBI started this portal called EDPMS in the year 2014. So prior to 2014, everything was manual. We used to send some ZOX reports to RBI telling RBI that these are the people who have not been able to realize the proceeds and so on and so forth. So from EDPMS, so RBI can get to know what is the current standing, how many exports proceeds are yet to be realized. So basically there are two activities which are done in EDPMS. So as far as export realization is done, so we enter the details of export realization in EDPMS. Customs enter those details of exports on a real-time basis, and as and when the shipment goes, or even if somebody is doing an Softex software export, so those filings are done by STP or SEZ authorities. So in nutshell, from EDPMS you can get to know if you got the export realization, whether the export is pending, whether shipment is pending or not. And on the other hand, you can also get to know if somebody has done an export, whether the money has been realized or not. So RBI can get to know this, at a click of a button now. No. So bankers can see it. So as a bank, we can see it, but we can obviously share your data with you. And nowadays, RBI is sending, you will be getting automated emails from RBI also, comprising of your EDPMS and IDPMS pendency. As a client, you will be having the bank's login. So bank can obviously if you avail service from ICICI Bank, we have a portal. You can go to the portal. That portal will show your pendency on each export side as well as the import side. So just to come to the FEMA regulations, as we discussed earlier, so in terms of definition, export is nothing but taking out goods out of India. It could be by it could be by sea, land, air, whatever it may be, and it also covers service exports also. As far as the timing for realization is concerned, the timeline is 9 months from the date of export, and in terms of if you're opening a warehouse abroad, so there's an extended timeline of 15 months. So general timeline is 9 months time only. So now this, you would have seen this foreign trade policy. There is an increased impetus on this e-commerce exports. So currently we are doing only around 2 billion e-commerce exports. So the government's target is to reach this to 200 to 300 billion in 2030. So if you're doing any e-commerce exports, so what you need to do is you need to have some enablement, because the guy will be sitting across in some other country. How will you get the money? So the whole challenge is to get the money. So to get this money, there's something called online payment gateway service providers, and in international arena you will find PayPals and Pioneers and Razorpay being very active. Say they got this tie-up with their Amazons of the world. So what you need to do is once you come on board of any e-commerce platform like Amazon or eBay, so they will anyways be having existing tie-up with either Payoneer or your PayPal. So what this OPGSP's enable is you can collect the proceeds in the manner you like. Suppose the other guy wants to make payment by means of wallet, you can do that. Other party wants to make payment by means of wire transfer, he can do that. Other party wants to make payment by means of some local transfers like NEFT, RTGS, what we call it ACH in the US and UK parlance. So that is also feasible. So it gives multiple options for the Indian exporter to realize the proceeds, and they can have a tie-up with the e-commerce exporters, and you can also do it for your own set of business also. So government has certain guidelines to it, like as we said, the RBI wants to regulate and ensure that each and every penny is realized. So what RBI says is for OPGSPs, so any money collected through OPGSPs, it has to be restricted up to $10,000, dollars per transaction. So that is the limit the RBI has kept. So money will come and it will land in bank's Nostro account, and once it comes in Nostro account, we have to immediately create the exporter. So this is how the online payment gateways function. So further, if you would have seen this foreign trade policy, so earlier, couple of years back, the limit was only 25,900 rupees. So I could have only exported up to 25,000 Indian rupees by means of courier or post. So now this limit has been raised to 10 lakh rupees. And further, this e-commerce benefit, this foreign trade benefits like this drawbacks and RODDAP and ROSPSTL. So those benefits are now being made available to e-commerce exporters also. Maybe you can follow the GST law. I think GST law clarifies. Maybe you can take a cue from there and then you can apply that, because FEMA doesn't specify the date of providing service. So the moment you are providing service, maybe you can take that. And in GST law, there is some more clarity to it, and maybe you can take a cue from there and you can use that.
So how does EDPMS is recording it?
So it doesn't record it. So as far as services are concerned, there is no declaration form submitted with the customs. So only for software exports, as of now, there is a declaration given to the EDs. For rest, AD banks are not bothered, so we won't even ask you. So you need to do your own diligence and ensure that the money is realized.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the companies are on their.
Companies are on their own. Yeah.
They can take the date of invoice or something.
So yeah, the date of provision of service. So whatever date you feel like, it could be the date of rendering of service, the day of completion, or because raising of invoice could be earlier or later also. So the date of provision of service is the day you are rendering the service. That is where you need to control. So if there is no other choice, so basically I'll tell you typically what we do is we have to rely on some chartered accountant certificate also, because for services we have to sometimes rely on external professional certificate. So whatever your CA or CS or whatever professional will give it to us, unless if it is not clear by the invoice. So as he said, he's right in certain way, like if there is no other way to mechanism for me to understand it, and if the invoice doesn't even bear the date of providing service, I would assume that the moment the service has been provided, immediately the invoice has been raised. So that is one logical way to ascertain it.
I believe which you are referring to, that goes for the designing things, because the CA can have a look that okay, you have received those designs.
So those for imports only. So those for imports, if you are importing something in non-physical manner, then the CA certificate we need it. So there the date is not that relevant, honestly. It's only you made an outward remittance. I need to ensure that outward remittance gets closed. So for that purpose, I need a chartered accountant certificate. So date will be least bothered about the date actually.
Sir, earlier for software export, STPI registration used to be mandatory.
It's still there, sir. So as you have to register as a non-STPA unit.
Normally, like, we keep on giving whole kind of advice. Sometimes it will be recommended as software, sometimes it may not be.
So I'll tell you, sir. So there it's a very classic question which you raise. Honestly speaking, like for example, a lot of BPOs and KPOs, they have to get themselves registered. So STPI has a different understanding and interpretation vis-a-vis the RBI's. Okay. So what we finally understood from because we had a lot of interaction with the STPI also, and a lot of cases we got into. So what we finally understood and what we are of the view is, if it is IT services or IT enabled services, suppose you're running a KP or a BP or accounting service, it can't be done in today's world without the IT backup to it. So wherever the enablement is from IT, you need to file the Softex. So that is what the STPA uses also.
Softex is mandatory.
Yes, sir.
And STPI is a private body or a government?
It's a government body, sir. It's an autonomous body under, yeah.
They behave like private bodies.
There is a limit also below which you don't require to file software.
No, nothing is there, sir. Earlier it used to be $25,000, so that has been done away long back. So even if you are doing a single rupee export at this point of time, you have to file export declaration. अभी कुछ नहीं है.
So how we are categorizing these trademarks or the brand fees or the royalties?
So royalties are current account transactions. So RBI specifically mentioned. So earlier there used to be restriction. Now it's freely available.
Import export itself are the
So it's honestly speaking, if you categorize, those are neither goods nor services. So royalty, trademarks, copyrights are neither goods nor services.
and how we are going to this interpretation because neither the regulations talk about this thing nor the current account rules talk about this.
So it's an interpretation. I'm telling you, no.
So
So it's obviously not a goods, not a service. So even though if you further go to GST has only two classification, but FEMA doesn't have any classification.
right, so as
Yeah.
you were referring for the service that date of export, how you will take, you can refer to GST. Then in this case, if I refer to GST, it is classifying it as a service.
No, but so I'm saying the whatever logical way you have interpretation, because as I told you, you can have different ways of interpreting also. So my take on this is because it's if you see RBI has covered it under master direction miscellaneous remittances. So that is where you can take a cue.
Purchase for trademark, not for the royalty or the brand name.
The royalty is also covered there.
Okay.
Yeah. So royalty payments, all those payments are covered under miscellaneous remittances. So that is why I'm taking a
You are
cue.
even referring to the payment of brand name. If I
Payment, there are two kind of transaction that can happen. It could be a capital account transaction, it could be a normal routine transaction also, whereas it's a revenue in nature. So if you're buying some brand name or copyright, it will be part of the capital account transaction. But if you're only doing a remittance of a royalty or something, that is a normal current account transaction. So earlier royalty used to be, there used to be capping. So that RBI has removed the capping. But as a banker, as an ED bank, they will ask for some professional certificates, independent certificate that valuation is at par, at arm's length, so and so forth. So those docs are required. Yeah. So briefly cover on this manual receipt also. So in nutshell, you can define this. So FEMA defines this how you can get the money in the country. So basically, we can categorize this into four categories. One is your ACU countries like Bangladesh, Myanmar, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Maldives. So typically, if you see, so there is an internal tie-up that we guys need to have. So there is a specific ACU nostro account that we need to open with these countries. So any which ways, Sri Lanka is out of it now. So government has given a leeway that if you're doing any transaction with Sri Lanka, it can be normal nostro route or route also that is applicable now. Similarly, Myanmar also the transaction can be done freely in any freely convertible currency also. So there is no need to follow the ACU route. And the second is Nepal, Bhutan is generally in INR only. And Iran is, as I told you, there are some specific transactions which are done in specific approvals from RBI with some specific bank only. It doesn't happen with any other bank. No other bank does it. And for any other country, generally it has to be either in rupees. So what it means is the money can come from a Vostro account, means a foreign bank holding an INR account with us. Or it can be in freely convertible currency, means the bank in India holding a nostro account with a foreign bank. So this is how the transitions generally happen as far as the international trade is concerned. In certain cases also RBI is given certain permissions, like if somebody is traveling to India and he gives you any foreign currency, that is allowed to settle your export proceeds. And similarly, if somebody is holding a non-resident account like NRE, non-resident external account, or special non-resident rupee account or FCN account, so those accounts can be used for making the export payments. And similarly, if a person, if somebody is traveling to India and he wants to make payment through his credit card, that is allowed. So obviously that money gets routed through the Indian bank servicing branch. And last but not the least, for certain cases in UAE, so there is something called exchange houses which exists there. So up to 15 lakh rupees INR, those exchange houses can remit money to Indian exporters.
So that means once he's traveling to India, he can pay.
Yeah. Somebody is traveling to India, he can pay in foreign currency. So that is allowed. But the vice versa is not allowed. So as
Without any limit?
so it's your CDF limit will apply. So there is a currency declaration form limit that prevails. So that obviously has to be complied with.
Sir, regarding Softex, have you experienced that they have imposed penalty on anyone for not publishing Softex?
So there is I've not seen that honestly speaking, and also RBI is very liberal as far as the current account transactions are concerned. So generally you will find less number of penalties and hardly any compounding orders on as far as the current account transactions are concerned. And on the capital account transaction side also, if you see now since we moved from compounding to late submission fee, so wherever there is a procedural delay in filings, etc. So those get covered by RBI in compounding. So that is also very standard now, 7,500 rupees per year and so on and so forth. So we'll just move next. So manner of payment also, if you see, there's the process remains the same. The bifurcation of countries has to be into 4 parts. ACU countries, you have to deal in your ACU dollar only. For Nepal, Bhutan, it has to be in INR. For Iran, it has to be specific payment with specific account. And for other countries, as I told you, it has to be freely convertible currency only.
Excuse me, I have a question.
Yeah.
Once we deal in INR, we keep on hearing that a lot of Vostro accounts have been opened here. But when we go out with the banks and check, none of the banks are actually handling remittances in INR for the export remittances. So, barring aside Iran and Russia, which are kind of a sanctioned nations, even for Singapore or Myanmar or for other countries which have opened the Vostro accounts, prime banks in India, the top 5 names, they are simply not answering that whether they will handle.
So I'll explain it to you, sir. So there are 2 kinds of, any which way the next slide is going to be Vostro only. So I'll just cover this piece right away. So basically there are 2 models which exist now. One is your earlier Vostro model. So Vostro is means only the foreign banker is holding an INR account with us. Okay. So what now we done is, what RBI has done is, so RBI has now opened a special scheme, something called special Vostro accounts. So where you can do an invoicing in INR and you can also do an export invoicing as well as import invoicing in INR. So what reason I can tell you the reason also. So typically if you are opening a Vostro account, it means there should be a bilateral trade with the country. So to be very honest with you, this Russian trade hasn't yet picked up. So though there is a demand from the Indian side, so we got sufficient value of imports. But unfortunately, they don't need that much of Indian rupees. Na? Suppose I start parking Indian rupees, suppose I start funding from an Indian importer everything into INR in a Vostro account of a foreign entity, and the other party doesn't have the demand. So what will they do? They will do nothing. Na? So for take a very small example, as far as the import is concerned in Russia, so we have sufficient value. So there are a large number of importers who want to make remittance to Russia, but unfortunately the other way it is not true. So there is not much of export realization which is happening from the Russian side. So if we are doing an export in Russia, the bilateral should be good enough. Na? It is not good enough. So that is why the Russian trade also they are insisting on CNY instead of going for this this special Vostro account in ruble INR. So I'll take an example. I'll further explain this to you. For other countries, the Vostro mechanism always existed. So what it means is but there should be the bank should have a relationship there, and typically the relationship would exist if the money is freely convertible. Like if I'm dealing with SGD, so SGD you should be able to find some bank. But my question is, why do you want to take money in Vostro? So what will happen in the Vostro account is the money gets converted in the overseas country. It doesn't happen that you will be getting everything free of cost. So
See, मैं एक छोटा सा एग्जांपल बता दो. सो यू बीइंग अ चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट फॉर एन एग्जांपल, मैंने आपको बोला मेरा इनकम टैक्स फाइल कर दीजिए, ठीक है. आपने कहा मेरा 5,000 INR इज माई फी, करेक्ट. मैंने बोला मेरे पास INR नहीं है, आई विल गिव यू नेपाली INR, और मैंने आपको 5,000 नेपाली INR दे दिया. ऐसे 50 लोग आए आपके पास, उन्होंने कहा भैया ये नेपाली INR ले लो. अब आप क्या करोगे? सिंपल, मैं आपको वहीं आ रहा हूँ मैं. सर सुनिए तो सही मेरा पॉइंट समझिए. अब आपको आ गया, अब आप घर कैसे चलाओगे? अब मैं इंडस्ट्री ऐसी चलती है. सो आप नेपाली INR का कुछ नहीं करोगे, बिकॉज रीजन क्या है, जब आप नीचे जाओगे सब्जी लेने और नेपाली INR नहीं चलेगा, ठीक है. अब इंटरनेशनली मैं आपको एक्सप्लेन करता हूँ व्हाट इज हैपनिंग इज. अभी क्या बोला रशिया ने. सो रशिया से मोदी जी गए, मोदी जी ने बोला ठीक है जी INR में हम ट्रांजेक्शन करेंगे. अब उसमें शर्त क्या है मैं आपको बताता हूँ. पहली शर्त ये है कि जो रशिया का जो बैंक है वो तैयार होना चाहिए पहले इंडिया में आके एक INR अकाउंट खोले, ठीक है जी, पहला. दूसरा उसमें यह है कि मान लो उसने INR अकाउंट खोल दिया. दूसरा ये है जो रशिया की जो पार्टी है वो तैयार होनी चाहिए INR में लेने के लिए, ठीक है जी. सो हो क्या रहा है अभी, इंडियन कस्टमर्स क्या है जो इंडिया में जो अपना माल बेचना चाहते हैं या INR में ट्रांजेक्शन करना चाहते हैं, अब उसमें क्या हो रहा है कि वो जो रशियन बैंक है या तो वो खोल नहीं रहा अकाउंट INR में. वो ये बोलता है कि भाई अगर मैंने INR में अकाउंट खोल दिया, आप समझे, उसने INR में अकाउंट खोल दिया, वो सब इंडिया में सब लोगों से INR पे पेमेंट्स लिए जा रहे हैं फॉर ऑन कस्टमर बिहाफ. अब बिलियंस ऑफ INR will be in his, तो वो कहेगा मेरा पैसा चोक हो गया. So I will not, he is not ready to open account or transact. सेकेंड प्रॉब्लम क्या है रशिया का, जो रशियन है वो कहता है भाई मैंने INR में पेमेंट ले तो ली, मैं INR का करूंगा क्या, बिकॉज जो मेरा जो सामान है, ठीक है, मुझे आगे जो बाइंग करनी है वो तो डॉलर्स में करनी है, अलग अलग देशों में करनी है, वहां आपका INR चलता नहीं है. तो इस वजह से क्या हो रहा है, अखबार में है, सब जगह है कि बहुत सारा INR में हो रहा है, बट कोई तैयार नहीं है करने को. सो दैट इज द रीजन.
So I'll answer your question also.
I think I can possibly give you some, because I
हाँ जी
think
सर.
ultimately when the country wants it, it is only bankers who can make it.
सर वी आर रेडी, बट आप समझो आज, हाँ सर बोलिए सर, बोलिए सर.
2 minutes only.
हाँ जी सर, सर.
I'm talking to at policy level.
करेक्ट सर,
Please appreciate, once you receive INR, you keep on receiving.
करेक्ट
You
सर.
can always convert them into dollars. No, go to the bank, convert, or buy from the market. You can buy from the market, no?
No, sir, what will happen is, no, sir. So what will happen in a Vostro account is, suppose a special Vostro account, it's,
शुरू तो कराइए, चक्का चलेगा तो चलेगा जोर से.
no, sir, पहले let me answer your question. So basically it is not restricted. Special Vostro account, you may have to look for some bank which is holding a special Vostro account in relationship in Singapore. So it may so happen you may have approached a bank, the bank may not have Vostro relationship. So bank may be holding a Nostro relationship. तो नोस्ट्रो में क्या होता है ना, मनी गेट्स कन्वर्टेड इन इंडियन, बट एनीवेज यू आर सेइंग द ओवरसीज पार्टी वांट्स टू डू इट, बट ऑब्वियसली देयर विल बी सर्टेन बैंक्स who will be holding those Vostro accounts in Singapore for sure, and then those banks, the Vostro money will come and this money will be routed in INR to your final beneficiary. It may so happen the bank you are banking with, they may not have the relationship in Vostro, they may not be having the Vostro, the other banks may so have it. So we'll check it and we'll let you know in case ICICI bank has it.
टॉप 5 नाम काम नहीं कर रहे हैं.
अच्छा, टॉप 5 में नहीं है वोस्ट्रो, नोस्ट्रो होगा हमारा, वोस्ट्रो नहीं होगा.
इसमें आप भी हैं और भी प्राइवेट और पब्लिक सेक्टर पांचों हैं, टॉप 5 नाम कोई काम नहीं.
हाँ तो हो सकता है सर, उसमें हमारा नोस्ट्रो से काम चल रहा होगा ना. देखो नोस्ट्रो भी चलता ही है, सेम ही चलता है. तो वोस्ट्रो के लिए जैसे बताया ना कि एज वी टोल्ड यू दिस स्पेशल वोस्ट्रो अकाउंट विल वर्क, जैसे ही एक्सप्लेन मोहित. So since what will happen is this money belongs to the foreign bank, it doesn't belong to us, it doesn't belong to the Indian banker. So if the foreign party has the requirement, suppose मेरा इंपोर्टर तो उसमें पंप कर देगा पैसा, मेरा इंपोर्टर खरीद रहा है, वो INR दे रहा है, बट मेरा एक्सपोर्टर भी उतना होना चाहिए ना. मैं सपोज 100 करोड़ का इंपोर्ट कर रहा हूँ, बट रशिया से एक्सपोर्ट तो 2 करोड़ का हो रहा है, वो 98 करोड़ का क्या करेगा? सो दैट इज द होल क्वेश्चन. So that is where the entire thing is stuck. So even though there are certain banks which are still doing it, so special Vostro also, I know that UCO is doing some transitions. We are also HDFC also doing a bit of transition. So there are some banks which are doing small chunk of transitions, small value transitions are being done, and hopefully this will gradually pick up. But as I told you, for Russian, as far as Russia is concerned, this hasn't much picked up because there is not much of bilateral trade which is there. I agree. So this is basically for all countries wherever the money is not freely convertible, like for Sri Lankan rupees, Bangladeshi taka. So there also this is going on. So we are also in the process of opening a special Vostro account with a Bangladesh bank. So that is going to happen very soon. So this is not Russia specific. So these are some of the cases where you can obviously open a foreign currency account outside India. So one is if you're participating in international exhibition or trade fair, that is possible. Then if you are an exporter, you want to open a specific account abroad, so that is possible. The third is if you are opening a branch office or licensing office abroad, you can open a foreign currency account abroad. SEZ units and project and service providers also, they can open a foreign currency account. The next comes is EEFC account. Most of you would anyways I think know it. So it's a natural hedge. Suppose you got transitions on the both sides. If you are an exporter and if you are also happen to be an importer, you wouldn't like to convert this foreign currency into INR and subsequently reconvert it and resend it again. So EFC account solves those problems for you. So you can park this money in EFC account and you can utilize those balances for subsequent payments for any current account or permitted capital account transition from this particular account. So there is one catch here. If you want to keep this money in, there is a mandatory conversion provision. So the money has to be converted on the 30th of the succeeding month. So that is a provision that needs to be adhered to. So we'll just quickly cover the project exports. So if you see project exports, the RBI defines it like if you're doing any export engineering goods on deferred payment terms, and if you're executing any turnkey or civil construction contracts abroad, so those are considered as project exports. And so there's an approval from AD Bank is also required, since you will be realizing those proceeds most likely beyond 9 months time. So that is the stipulated time, as we told you, for realization of export proceeds. So for such cases, wherever you are going to realize the money beyond this 9 months period, or if it involves any fund-based or non-fund-based limit from Reserve Bank of India, from the bank side, so there you'll be requiring a RBI approval. So there is one leeway given to the engineering goods on deferred term cases. So if it is a pure supply contract, and if you are able to realize say 90% of the proceeds within 6 months time and remaining in next 2 years time, there is no need for any specific RBI from the banks. There is no need for any bank's approval. So now we'll cover to the certain rules and regulations. So as we told you, the bank, you are supposed to realize the proceeds in 9 months time, but it may so happen you are unable to realize the proceeds in 9 months time. So there you can follow the RBI guidelines of extension. So you can approach your AD bank, and AD bank can grant this extension. So there is a specific guideline to it that your export, your outstanding overdue export shouldn't exceed 1 million or 10% of the average export realization during the 3 preceding years, whichever is higher. So if you are able to meet this criteria, and then the bank will be happy to grant extension. So bank can grant extension by 6 months in one go. And if you would have seen this foreign trade policy comprising a RODDAP, and even if you follow the GST guidelines and so on and so forth, so it very clearly states if you are availing any drawback benefit, if you are availing any RODDAP benefit, if you are availing any IGST refund, you need to ensure the money gets realized within the stipulated timeline given by RBI. If you are unable to realize it, or if you are unable to extend it, then you are supposed to surrender those benefits. So it is very, very important to teach your clients to adhere to this extension, because people generally don't make use of it. They generally will come up to you once only at the time of realization. So the next is a set off case. So what happens a lot of times? So you may be dealing with you may be having a client who is doing that transaction on both sides. So he may be importing something from the customer, and at the same time he may be doing some validation, or he may be doing some other export to the same customer. So obviously he wouldn't like to do the transition both ways. Like he wouldn't like to receive inward remittances and make outward remittance. He would like to set it off. So RBI is allowed set off. So earlier set off was not allowed for services. It allows for services also now. So the guideline is, the condition is very, very simple. Like you need to provide all the documents to your AD bank, both sides. Along with it, they will be asking for a chartered accountant certificate also. And last but not the least, the transaction should happen in the same calendar year. So this is one bit of thing which people find it difficult to comply, but this is one very, very critical thing in this. And if it doesn't meet this criteria, if your both legs do not happen in the same calendar year, then obviously the AD banks can approach Reserve Bank of India for requisite approvals.
Generally clients, what they do is they make a 15 CA Part D and make the payment. Net off. Generally because the guys who are into freight forwarders, every day they are bringing in something and sending out. So do they have to give all the invoices to set off to make this? How exactly it will go?
So this is required, sir. So if you want to comply with the guidelines, this is how it is to be done. So as I understand, it's a services part. So you are doing it on your own. So banker won't even ask for it. The banker won't even get to know this. So this is what it's. Yeah, I understand that. So
there's a new circular has come in?
This came almost a year ago, sir. Yeah. Yes, sir. I think I'll take, and then I'll take your question.
So in case of delayed receipts, what is happening in Egypt,
Hmm.
and the money is not getting realized even in dollars or euro or any local currencies, what should as a client do? Should they go out? Because anyways banks have it on the EDPMS portal that the shipment has happened, payment has not been realized for over a year. Our funds have been stuck for more than a year now. We've been licensing with ICICI Bank.
Please come in.
But what should be done? Do we need to go to RBI, report it, or what is to be done?
So you can get the extension from the bank.
Sir,
now.
1 minute, sir.
Yeah, sure.
तो देखिए our time is already up. He was till 3:15. My 3:15 to 3:30 speaker is sitting here. Please appreciate this. मेरा एक suggestion है सर आपको, क्योंकि questions सबके answer होने हैं. And I think he has kindly agreed to answer everybody's questions. You can put all your questions in writing, and we'll put it to him. And I think his response will send to you. And whatever is still left, we are there to solve your issues. आप बाद में भी, आज भी, कल भी, परसों भी, अगले साल भी, जब मर्जी हमसे सवाल पूछिए, हम सारे सवालों का जवाब देंगे आपको. पर प्लीज लेट अस कीप ऑन गोइंग, बिकॉज बहुत सारी चीज़ें रह जाती हैं. कोई किसी को आई थिंक Till the time we permit you, nobody is asking any questions, please. Sir, आप 2 मिनट में खत्म करिए सर.
हाँ तो अभी सर मैं आपसे ये so what I'll do is sir my colleague is going to be here only for the entire rest of the time, so don't worry if you have any questions you want to speak to me directly, there is absolutely no problem, so we'll connect with you also separately. हाँ तो मोहित जी 20 साल से ये कर रहे हैं. ठीक है तो so we'll just quickly cover the import side of it, so just yeah. So we'll just cover basically what so typically I think you may be having certain cases where you know your old bill of entries are appearing, your old outward remittances are appearing in this IDPMS portal. So IDPMS is nothing but the reverse of EDPMS. So any transaction that you do on the import side, the banks as a bank we have to report the outward remittances to this IDPMS portal, and similarly the customs report this bill of entries in this IDPMS portal. So you may be having the old cases which are still appearing in the IDPMS, but you may have given to your AD banks, or because earlier till 31st December 2016 you need to provide the exchange control copy to the bankers. If still those entries are open, you can rely on this RBI guideline. So if the value is only up to 1 lakh USD or equivalent, you can give an alternate certificate, alternate document like chartered accountant certificate or your authorized signatory certificate or auditor certificate, and the banker, if the banker's policy allows it, then they will be definitely able to close those entries. So last but not the least, so these are certain elements which we captured, like this special Vostro accounts which are there, then this lot of cases of express courier cargo bill of entries and shipping bills, so those are now available on EDPMS. Similarly, as I told you, this foreign trade benefits are available to e-commerce exports. The value has been enhanced from 5 lakhs to 10 lakhs. Then recently there is a restriction on import of laptops, computers and other components. There is a production link scheme announced for IT hardware with 17,000 crores. There are anyways 58 applications still they have been received by IT ministry. So that's it from our side. So this PPT contains the link. So if you want to refer to any RBI notification or guidelines, so this PPT has the links to it. So you can access those things in greater detail. So that's it from my side. And if you still have any question, so we'll be happy to take your questions, and you can give it to sir, or you can liaise with my colleague out here. Thank you. Thanks very much.